Our anniversary started like a dream. He booked a dinner reservation at our favorite restaurant, wore the shirt I love, and even brought flowers, something he hadn't done in years. Everything felt thoughtful, intentional, like he was trying. After dessert, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "Happy anniversary," he said, smiling like he meant it. I opened it, and inside was a watch. Not just any watch. Elegant. Minimalist. Rose gold trim. The kind of piece I'd pointed out once in a window, months ago, and never mentioned again. I looked up at him. "You remembered?" He nodded. "Of course I did." I leaned across the table and kissed him. Because in that moment, I believed this was what love looked like. Remembering the small things. Making someone feel seen. I slipped the watch on my wrist, smiling like I'd just been given a piece of time itself. What I didn't know was that time was exactly what he wanted to control. I wore the watch every day after that. At first, it felt like love on my wrist, a little reminder that maybe, just maybe, we were reconnecting. Healing. Getting back to who we used to be. But the more I wore it, the more something didn't feel right. It was heavier than I expected. Not uncomfortably so, just noticeable. Like it was carrying more than time. And every now and then it buzzed. Not like a smartwatch pinging a notification. Just a low, short hum. No screen. No light. No reason. I asked him once, jokingly, if it had a built-in secret agent feature. He just laughed and said, "It's fancy. Probably just syncing something." I let it go. Because that's what you do when you want to believe everything's okay. But deep down, something about that watch started to make my skin crawl. A week later, I was having lunch with my friend Taylor. We just finished swapping stories about work stress and weekend plans when she suddenly paused mid-sip of her iced coffee. "Whoa! That's a nice watch," she said, nodding at my wrist. I smiled, maybe a little too proudly. "Anniversary gift." She leaned in for a closer look, squinting slightly. "Wait, is that one of those smart tracker things? You know, with built-in GPS?" I blinked. "No, it's just a regular watch. At least I think so." She raised an eyebrow. "It looks like one of those covert tech models. My boyfriend got one last year. It tracks movement and location. Hidden sensors and stuff." I laughed it off. Shrugged. But in that instant, something shifted. I stared down at the watch. The weight. The hum. The odd buzz I couldn't explain. Could it really be tracking me? Taylor went back to talking, but I wasn't listening anymore. My mind was racing. Because when your gut already whispers something's wrong, it doesn't take much for the suspicion to start screaming. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept turning my wrist under the moonlight filtering through the blinds, watching the watch catch the faint glint of silver. Something that was supposed to feel romantic now felt invasive. I took it off. Held it in my palm. Just stared at it. The back looked solid, seamless, too clean. But then I noticed it. A single tiny screw, barely visible, off-center. Not part of the original design photo I found when I searched the model online. That hum I'd heard earlier? It wasn't nothing. I looked up the make and model, clicked through forums and product pages until I stumbled on a post. "This design has a hidden SIM tray behind the faceplate, mostly used for micro GPS units or cellular pings." My heart started to pound. This wasn't paranoia anymore. This was something real, and it was on my body. I didn't want to believe it. I wanted it to be a weird coincidence. A manufacturing flaw. Anything else. But deep down, I already knew. This wasn't just a gift. It was a device. And it wasn't just keeping time. It was keeping tabs. The next morning, I drove across town to a small electronics and watch repair shop. Not the fancy mall kind, just a quiet, cluttered place run by a guy named Reggie, who could fix anything from vintage radios to drone cameras. I walked in casually, the watch in my hand. Hey, could you open this up? Just curious what's inside. It's been making weird noises. Reggie took it without a word, adjusted his glasses, and rolled his stool over to a little bench behind the counter. I stood there trying to act normal, but inside, every nerve was on edge. He unscrewed the back with a precision tool, gently popped the casing open, and then stopped. He squinted, then turned to me. This isn't standard. You know this has a board in it, right? I blinked. A board? Yeah, circuit board, battery pack, antenna wiring. It's not for the watch function. This here, he tapped it gently, is a GPS tracker. Real time. My mouth went dry. Can it be linked to anything? I asked, barely managing the words. He nodded slowly. It's transmitting. Could be sending data to a phone, tablet, computer, whoever registered the SIM. That's when the air left my lungs. The watch wasn't for style. It wasn't romantic. It was a tracking device. And my husband had put it on my wrist. With a smile, I left the repair shop holding the watch like it was radioactive. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just drove in silence, hands tight on the wheel, the truth echoing louder with every turn. He put a tracker on me. Not in my car. Not in a bag. On me. And the worst part? I kept hearing his voice in my head. Of course I remembered. It's syncing something. I just wanted to surprise you. Suddenly, all those little moments made sense. The way he always asked where I was going, but never casually. It was always exact, always time-stamped. How long were you at the gym? You were at your sister's, right? Why were you on the west side today? At the time, I chalked it up to curiosity, maybe a little possessiveness. Now I realized he wasn't asking. He was verifying. Because he already knew. And that kind of knowing, without trust? That's not love. That's control. And I was done being watched. I wasn't going to confront him until I knew everything. So I reached out to someone who owed me a favor, Rita, a cybersecurity consultant I helped through a messy divorce last year. She didn't ask questions when I said, I think my husband is tracking me. Can you help me trace the signal? She came over the next evening with a laptop, a USB decoder, and that calm, sharp expression she gets when she's about to expose something. I handed her the watch. She popped the SIM out of the GPS unit, slid it into an adapter, and started tracing its metadata. Within minutes, she had it. It's sending updates every 5 minutes to a mobile endpoint, she said. A phone? She nodded. Registered under a different name, but tied to an email account I recognize. She turned the screen toward me. My husband's email. Burner phone. Fake account. Real-time tracking. Every time I went to the grocery store. Every time I saw a friend. Even the time I lied and said I was at the spa just to get some time alone with my thoughts, he knew. He wasn't just watching. He was waiting. But for what? That was the question. And I was ready to find out. That night, I didn't wait for the perfect moment. I walked into the living room while he was half watching TV and scrolling his phone. The watch was in my hand. Disassembled. Exposed. I dropped it on the coffee table. Want to explain this? He looked down. Blinked. Then forced a confused laugh. What, is that mine? No. It's mine. The anniversary gift you gave me. Remember? He leaned back like I'd just insulted him. Okay, relax. What's going on? You put a GPS tracker in my watch. Silence. He didn't blink. Didn't flinch. No, I didn't. It's registered to your burner number. The data links to your email. I traced the SIM. Don't lie to me. And then, finally, he reacted. Look. I didn't mean it like that. Things fell off. I thought maybe you were hiding something. I just wanted to be sure. I stared at him. Not because I needed clarification, but because I couldn't believe he had the audacity to frame it as concern. You tracked me because you didn't trust me. I didn't want to lose you. So you decided to spy on me instead of talk to me? His voice lowered. You wouldn't have told me the truth. And that's when I realized. He wasn't sorry. He wasn't shocked. He was defensive, because he got caught. This wasn't fear. This was guilt. But what was he really afraid of? Because something about his panic wasn't about me cheating. It was about something else entirely. After he stormed out of the room, slamming the door like he was the one betrayed, I sat down at his laptop. I knew the password. Of course I did. He trusted me just enough to let me into his computer, just not enough to believe I'd stay faithful without surveillance. I opened his email. Nothing stood out, at first. Then I checked the sent folder from the burner account Rita linked to the tracker. That's when it all came pouring in. Hundreds of automatic location updates. Every address I'd been to for the past 2 months. Timestamps. Routes. Notes on repeat visits. Even screenshots of maps showing little pins with labels like Jim, friend, unverified. I scrolled until I saw something that stopped me cold. October 12th, she lied about going to the office. Cross-check this. Cross-check this. Like I was a criminal. A case file. A project. He wasn't paranoid. He was tracking and documenting me. And the worst part? There was nothing to find. I wasn't hiding anything. But now I had to wonder. Was he? Because people project what they're afraid of. And if he was this terrified I was keeping secrets. What secrets was he hiding from me? I couldn't sleep that night. Not with the weight of every. Where are you? Every. How long will you be gone? Every. You said you were at the store. All of it echoing in my head now, scripted lines from a man trying to match my words to the data feed he'd been pulling from my wrist. But here's the thing. If he thought I was cheating. Why? What triggered that kind of paranoia? And that's when it hit me. Guilt. People don't build prisons for others unless they're trying to trap the version of themselves they're afraid to face. So I went back to his laptop. This time, I searched deeper, hidden folders, old backups, deleted messages. And there it was. An archive. A folder buried inside another folder labeled something innocent, receipts. But the contents? Screenshots of text conversations. Photos of a woman I didn't recognize. Venmo transactions labeled things like, for the room, and, our weekend. Dates lined up perfectly. Times when he said he was traveling for work. He was watching me for signs of betrayal. While covering his own. He wasn't afraid I'd cheat. He was afraid I'd find out he already had. And the watch? It wasn't for security. It was a distraction. A beautiful, glittering lie. Meant to keep me looking at the time. So I wouldn't notice what was happening behind it. I sat there, staring at the screen, the truth staring right back. He thought he was clever, hiding the affair under layers of fake concern, burying it beneath code, control, and the illusion of protecting our marriage. But the irony? The entire time he was tracking my every move, my every breath. I was loyal. I was present. I was still fighting for us. And he was the one lying. He planted a spy on my wrist like I was the threat. But he was the one sneaking off to hotels. Messaging another woman in the middle of the night. Transferring money to someone I'd never even heard of. And for what? So he could feel better about his own guilt. So he could justify his cheating by catching something that never existed? I should have been angry. Explosive. But I wasn't. I was still. Because when someone breaks your heart from behind your back, it shatters differently. Quietly. Like glass cracking under pressure before it even falls. And all I could think was, how long was I walking around wearing proof of how little he trusted me, and I called it love? The next morning, I didn't scream. I didn't throw his things. I didn't give him the satisfaction of a dramatic scene. I just packed. Not everything, just what mattered. The rest? Let him keep it. Let it remind him. Before I left, I walked to the kitchen table and placed the watch in the center, face up, ticking softly. Then I took a piece of paper from the drawer, scribbled 3 short lines, and left it folded beneath the glinting lie he called a gift. You should have just asked me. I would have told you the truth. What were you hiding? No signature. No explanation. Because now. He already knew. And I walked out the door, lighter, stronger, leaving behind the weight of everything he tried to bury in silence, control, and polished metal. He gave me time. But I took it back.